my.
And welcome to Empire State of Baseball, everybody. Today is Monday, June 6th. Rich is off today, so
Thank God.
We have replaced him with the Chooch himself, Mr. Matt Hooker, as he will join us and give Tom a little support that he might need today dealing with Corey instead of doing it by his lonesome. So how are you today, boys?
I'm doing good, but the question is, Chooch, how are you doing, baby? Welcome to the show.
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to bring Chooch's pick of the week live to you guys today. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, there you go. Welcome. I know you always make your weekly picks of the week. Now you get your weekly show of the week. But now, listen, another Monday. I know we were off last Monday, but we had a Tuesday show last week. But back to Monday nights with you gentlemen, and it's good to be here.
Absolutely. And again, it's just great that I don't have to, carry Rich's dead body around and just carry the show for the Yankee fans. I'm happy to have the Chooch here to help support me, because Rich honestly brings nothing to the show. So
oh boy,
this can only be the best show of Empire State of Baseball's history.
Yeah, well, we shall see. But listen, maybe this is the best show in Empire State of Baseball history, but I can tell you what, both of our New York teams are the best teams in baseball right now, which is awesome. How about that? Both teams leading their respective leagues. Yankees with the best overall record in Major League Baseball. Mets with the best record in the National League specifically. I'm pumped. I mean, Joe, what do you got to say about this nice Mets and Yankees run we have here right now?
No, it's a great day to be a New York baseball fan in particular. We have probably not seen something like this in more than a decade, where both of these teams are basically on top of the baseball world right now, and it's going good. The only thing that kind of stinks for Met fans right now is you have to kind of wait up to the wee hours of the night to watch your team play on the West Coast for the next week as well. But other than that, you got to be happy where both of these teams are right now. So,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, both teams on top of the leagues. It's like we keep saying, like, are we on that collision course for that Subway Series? And it's just every week we have an episode. It just feels like we're one step closer. And if that happens, my God, the pandemonium that this show and this city would be, it'd be insane. So we'll see if we get there.
That'd be fun.
Yep, I'll tell you what. If they end up having a Subway Series after the debut of our show, I think we're gonna have a spot on WFAN full time going forward. At that point, I mean, it absolutely wild. It's a fun ride, and both of the teams. I mean, you look at the New York Mets, obviously coming off of this series versus the Dodgers, and we'll get more into that later. But it looked like, all right, maybe they're playing the best team in the league. Maybe some of the injuries to the pitching staff going to catch up to them. There were some pretty. When I was looking at the series, there were some pretty rough pitching matchups. Like I thought Saturday's game with Peterson versus Buehler, I thought there was no shot in that game. They ended up lighting up Buehler. And even Sunday, I thought the better pitching matchups the Mets were actually in the first half of the series, and they lost both those two games. But they held on, came back, split the series, and the Yankees just keep the train rolling. A little hiccup. What was it, around like last weekend? I think they ended up losing like three. Yeah, they lost like 3 in a row, the Yankees, and then they haven't lost since. It's crazy. And I mean, listen, say what you want about scheduling. At the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. You got to beat the teams you're playing, and that's what the Yankees and the Mets, to an extent, are both doing.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, like they've had game. You say it's play the schedule you have. Like some of these teams, like they've beaten into becoming losing teams. I know the Angels coming in were a little bit reeling, but then the Yankees, I felt like, just kind of finished them off and sent them to Philly to just get beat by a team that just fired their manager. I think it's what the Yankees are doing to them. If you look at the way the pitching is going, and I know over the weekend, Detroit's offense is just absolutely abysmal. Boy, that I feel bad for Tigers fans if you're watching that that nightly because ooh, that's rough. But the Yankees they're coming in. You can't score off them. You can't score off the starters. The starters are going 6-7 innings, giving them no runs, maybe 1 run, and then they're doing enough on offense. In some games, they're slaughtering you. It's again, a Yankee fan, and saying we're used to winning and all of that, but the Yankees haven't been this good in. I mean, honestly, 20 years. It's been since or however long since not the end of the 90s or so. I guess it's like 20 years, right? Is that how old we are?
Well, they won in 09. They were pretty good in 09. But
They were
all right,
pretty good, but it was like one run of it. Like this, I know,
Yeah.
granted, this is just 1 year, but like this team it's like different. Like it's the confidence in watching this team. It's just like Chooch, get in here. Like it's different.
All
Yeah,
right,
I couldn't agree more. But
before we get into that, let's just give our fans a notice on Twitch before we get into a deep dive into the Yankees. Tom, what do you got for us?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, hopefully you're all watching us live on Twitch. If you're not watching us on the YouTube replay, if you are watching us on the replay, get involved live with us. Get involved in the live chat. Download the Twitch app and subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. The link is also in our Twitter bio. If that's too difficult for you to figure out,
great.
But
now
I was gonna say, yeah, I do want to get Damon to Chooch. Let's get you in here.
Yes. Now let's get
your
back
thoughts
into
on the way this team has been going so far before we get into some Yankee topics.
Absolutely. If you would have told me at the beginning of the year this is where it would be now, I would say you're crazy. But let me say this last go around in the rotation might be the closest to an immaculate 1 through 5.
Yeah.
The past 5 games that I've ever seen pitched in my life. I mean, we almost had two near no hitters, and like you said, Tom, the starters are going 7 innings, giving up a hit, putting 0 runs on the board, and then just handing it to the bullpen to close it out. It's been a great year, and if the starters can continue this through the end of the year, it'll be fantastic. I don't know though if Cortez and Talion are going to hang on to this momentum. I don't think they've ever pitched this many innings in the career after the All-Star break. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean we definitely will, and we're flying through the screens here. I don't know how I feel about this. I'm getting a little whiplash, but another honestly the strength of the team is pitching, but also we talk about the big man a lot. Aaron Judge has been on fire. We've seen him on these streaks before, especially his rookie year, where he just has months or stretches where he hits an unbelievable amount of homers. We are exactly 1/3 of the way through the season right now, and he is on pace for 63 home runs, which is a number that is important to really all baseball fans, especially because a lot of people might think that the all-time single season record is still 61, asterisk free. So what do we think? Not just Matt, but our Mets fans here. Do we think Judge can top Maris? Can he keep this pace up and hit 62 plus homers?
I'll tell you what, it's a fun ride with Aaron Judge. I mean, the guy is absolutely killing it right now. He hasn't even hit 200 at bats yet, and like you said, 21 home runs to lead the league. OPS of 1.059. I mean, it is June. I mean, it's not like we're in the second week of April and you have someone coming off a 3 home run week. It is June, and he's hitting an OPS over 1. I mean, that is phenomenal. And now, listen, now the debate seriously begins. It's like, can he catch Mantle? Maris? Is he going to get that 61 home run mark? Is he going to catch Bonds? Is he going to hit the 73 homer mark for this year? I don't know about that, because I don't think anyone is ever going to top Bonds ever again in 73 home runs per season. But I'm going to tell you what, I don't think 61 home runs is out of the question for Aaron Judge. If he continues to stay healthy, and he's looked very healthy so far, continues to mash this baseball, and continues to play most of his games in Yankee Stadium, which, listen, I know we had a whole debate on that the last few weeks, but clearly the guy's got power. He could hit it out of any park, so it doesn't really matter where he's playing. Maris is not out of the question. I think that 60 home run plateau is definitely doable. I think he could top it.
Yeah, 73 is not going to happen. We just kind of put that in there. But 61, listen, there are times, and we've seen seasons before. We saw one from Stanton himself where he got close, where we get to that level late in the year and it's in play. At the end of the day, it's one of those things I have to see to believe. You know, I, Judge is a big guy. He's been hurt before. I can see a 15-day, a
Joe is
10-day
going with the judges. Been hurt
IL.
before. My goodness, he's
If
playing the
I were
greatest
a
hits. It's a
if I
short
were a betted
porch.
man,
Judge gets
61
hurt. My team's an
61 is
embarrassment of a
not going to be.
franchise. Just keep the greatest hits going, Joe.
We've seen first halves like this before. We've seen people end the first half with more than 30. I think we had somebody end the first half with 35 home runs a few years back, and then they hit like 10 home runs the entire second half. I forgot who it was, but I don't think he gets to either one. Listen, anything above 45 is beyond a great. Even up to 45 is a great season for Judge. I think he'll end up somewhere in the 50 range. I think for him, he wants to eclipse what he did in his rookie year and what Alonso then went up to him. So I think he would love to get towards 61, but I think he ends up in the low 50s if I had to guess and if I had to put money on it. But he's having a fantastic season. The Yankees are able to hide the fact that Hicks and Gallo are not hitting at all on this team, and the pitch has been fantastic. So right now the formula is Judge carries the offense and the pitching is lights out. That's all they need right now, and that's all they've needed going forward, especially when you're playing some teams like the Tigers that can't hit anything. So
I mean, listen, if you think Judge can get into the 50s, that means Judge can hit over 60. What he would need realistically to top 60, and to, if we're gonna talk about even getting to Bonds of 73, is he needs, and granted it's happened once in history, really. Well, not once, but I'm sure other times. But what Sammy Sosa did in the month of June 1998, for those of you who don't remember, he hit I think 20 homers in the month of June. He went absolutely bananas that month, is what really got him into the race. And Judge, we need to do something like that. I think if we're talking him going 73, he needs to have a month where he hits 17, 18, 19, 20 homers. Then it's realistic, and that is a huge feat even for the big man to accomplish. But he, at this point, he seems so just hard to get out. He has such a good approach. He's not striking out like he used to as much. He's not chasing balls. Everything he hits is a rocket. He could do it, and it'll be interesting. I wouldn't bet it. I wouldn't, if you said, will he do it or won't he? I would say he won't, but I think he's going to make it interesting if he can get hot or stay kind of where he's been.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's certainly possible for him to get there. I think a big factor is him staying healthy for the whole season. If he stays healthy the whole season, I think he could do it. Another factor is I think he will get all the invites to the home run derby, but I think he should skip it this year again. Keep him fresh. But the Bonds number, I don't see him coming close to it. If he does catch Maris, he's gonna get it by 1 or 2. I don't see him going any further than that.
So I guess a question for you guys is this then. So if let's say he gets 65 homers, that's what he ends up with. How does baseball react? How to do I mean, MLB is not going to say he's a single season home run leader, but do we think, how much is that groundswell going to be to maybe really start putting those asterisks on numbers, and what do you guys think of that possibility if he can beat Maris but not get to Bonds, Sosa, or McGuire? And Sosa ended up with 66.
I don't think baseball's never really doing that whole asterisk nonsense. I think they learned their lesson after Maris broke Roos. The 61 has been eclipsed not just one time but several times, and it's been eclipsed by Bonds, by McGuire, and by Sosa several times. So you know what? Regardless of the fact that steroids were involved or cork bats or anything, the record has been downed multiple times. So it's hard to say. Everybody points to Bonds because that's the final number. But there there's 3 or 4 guys in front of him in 3 or 4 different years. And yes, there will be some fanfare of it, but it's going to be seen more as a pat on the back, as a curiosity. Maybe the media grabs hold of it if it's looking like it. But so much has to go right for Judge to even reach. And forget Bonds. To even reach Maris, he has to stay completely healthy. He can't have a slump, which he hasn't gotten into a slump yet. Pitchers are going to stop pitching to him soon because they'll go after other guys in the Yankee order.
Not
Especially
if Stanton's sitting behind them. Like they can't.
Stanton just got hurt once already, so let's see what happens. But there is a let's not let Judge beat you mentality that is going to be adopted by other teams. So a lot is going to go against Judge going forward. The good part about it is we're talking about it. So right now he's looking good to be in that conversation.
Yep. No, certainly. And listen, I'm going to throw out another stat out there for you guys. And this is more for the advanced analytics nerds. And for those of you who might not know, OPS plus, so on base plus slugging plus. All right. This is a stat that not only takes your on base and slugging as standard OPS would, this takes it a step further and tries to normalize your average, your statistics across the whole league. Also taking into account the ballpark factor. And we could talk all we want about Yankee Stadium, whether it's a small park, easy to hit some home runs. But
it's not. We've gone over this before.
I know. Oh, yeah. We've gone through that. And I want to give you this stat with OPS plus for Judge, all right? An above average player, all right, has an OPS plus above average 150, all right? And looking at
that's way above average. A 100 is average. Like 100 is the most average middle of the road player. 150
that's very good.
150 is you're an all-star.
Yeah. And you want to know what Judge is right now? 201. OPS plus of 201. I mean, I don't follow OPS plus that much, but that's insane. I'm an OPS guy personally. I think standard OPS is personally my favorite stat to judge a hitter on their performance because it takes into account guys who get on base. So it's going to reward those contact guys, those guys who draw walks from the on base part. And it's going to reward the guys who could slug some extra bases because of the slugging percentage part. But OPS plus, I mean, that's a lot of people, the analytics nerds love that stat because it normalizes players across the league. I mean, Tom said himself, 150, you're really in a great tier of ball players. Miguel Cabrera, 2014, was right around 150 OPS. He had a great year that year. Judge at 201. So listen, can he sustain this over the course of the year? Remains to be seen. Let's
Probably
see
not.
how August goes. But yeah, once you get into the dog days of the summer, the temperature is 95 for a week straight. We'll see if that continues. But listen, for now, you just got to enjoy the ride.
Guys like big power highs, it's just about sustaining it is not usually possible. It's when you get hot, how hot can you get and how long can you hold it? A power hitter like Judge, like Stanton, like Pete Alonso, they can go nuts in a 10-game stretch and hit 12 homers. I mean, that's super nuts. But they get to 8 homers in 10 games, and then you do that 3 times a year, and boom, there's just 24 homers, and that's in just what I mean. So it's out there for those guys to do. It just depends how long they can hold it. What were you saying, Matt?
I said pay the man.
He's
going crazy.
Please and thank you.
Drive that price up. Pay the man. He's showing what he could do.
You are not wrong about that. And listen, let's turn the page also. I know all the focus is on Judge because right now there's no doubt about it. In my opinion, he is the MVP for the American League. I mean, a lot of people are saying Trout as well right now. It's Judge. It's Aaron Judge. I'm sorry. But yeah, no doubt about it. But it's not just Judge that's carrying this team. It's also that starting pitching staff. And going back to our very first show of the year, starting pitching was actually my biggest concern for the Yankee team. Obviously with Cole, there were the concerns about the Spire attack. I wasn't really worried about Cole. But the questions were after him. Who was going to be on that team? Was Severino going to come back and pitch at a high level after missing a ton of baseball over the last few years? Nestor Cortez. Nobody saw what's happening with Nestor Cortez. We also mentioned Tyone early in the show. He's pitching great also. I mean, listen, I want to pose a question for you guys. How legit is this Yankee pitching staff right now? Do you think they'll be able to keep it up Or because we have to be a little controversial here as well, how do we factor some of the lesser competition? I know we just spoke about Detroit. I mean, they're a terrible lineup. The Yankees absolutely abuse them. But one stat you got to throw out there, and again, this is from Power Rankings Guru. They rank all the schedules in the league. Yankees right now are sitting at the 4th easiest schedule to date. In the second half, they actually have one of the tougher schedules because you actually in the end of June, they have a really tough stretch. But guys, I mean, Matt, Yankee fan perspective, what are your thoughts on the starting pitching? What are your concerns? Can they maintain it?
So, like I said earlier, if you would have told me this is where we would be right now, I would have said you're crazy. So what I'm thinking is Cole, he's been there before. He's played multiple seasons, full seasons. I think he sustains it. It's a big question mark for the rest of the 4 of them. Sevy's coming off an injury. Monty hasn't pitched a full season in a long time. Cortez hasn't pitched a full season. And Taillon has another injury history himself. So none of these guys have pitched full seasons before besides Cole. And we have to see, getting into the dog days of summer, past the All-Star break, can these guys sustain what they're doing now? That's the biggest question. I don't think they're going to sustain the level that they are now. They are going to tail off a little eventually. It's going to happen. But I do think towards the end of the year, we'll see what happens. I think Cole's the only one that's going to hold strong, honestly.
And we'll see. I think one of the strengths of what the Yankee rotation is just how different all of them are. So if you go into them against a series, you have Cole, who is your classic power pitcher, electric stuff, plus stuff. Then you go to Severino, who also does have some electric stuff, but he just has a different vibe on the mound. He's throwing, definitely throwing a little bit of different pitches up there. Then you have Nestor Cortez, who just, he's modern day Louis Tion. He's pausing, he's lefty, he's dropping down, he's quick pitching, he's doing a bunch of odd stuff. Then you go to Taillon, who can be like a power type pitcher. A fastball heavy guy, and then you got Montgomery, almost like a classic lefty with like the big curveball and stuff. So I think it's tough going into a series where every game you have to bring a different approach. And then as far as how can they sustain it, who knows? Like we've talked about it, and I was skeptical of the starting rotation going into the season because the guys haven't been able to prove it, but they have proved it at this point. I think the strength of schedule thing is pretty beat to talk about. I understand that the Tigers are horrible, but the Yankees also just held the Angels, who I don't think people would say they are a layup of a lineup, to 3 runs in 3 games. So if that rotation was able to do it against a team like the Angels, who are a very good offense.
They're in free fall right now, so
partially in free fall.
You got them at the right time.
Yeah, well, they're partially in free fall because they went to the Bronx and got their asses kicked.
Well, they're in worse shape than just the Yankees. I mean, they just got beat by the Philly. They got swept by the Phillies, who just fired their manager. So, but
I know, because I already mentioned that before.
Listen,
and they got put in that position because they left the Bronx with the tails between their legs after getting just absolutely embarrassed.
They're on a 12-game losing streak. They were on a 5-game losing streak before they even got to the Yankees. So listen, the strength of schedule is a factor. You played Baltimore and Detroit. You've played them 18 times in the first third of the season. That is a huge advantage. And let's not forget, Kansas City. They've played some really stinker teams, and they caught the Angels in the middle of a tailspin. So that helps. We saw that
we're going to keep mentioning the Yankees schedule. I'm just going to continuously bring up the abomination and embarrassment that the NL East is, and that the Mets just get to play horrible teams in their division.
The Mets are in the middle of the toughest road trip in baseball right now. They're going to get 4 against the Dodgers, and now they got to go against the Padres. They're the top 2 other teams in the division, in the league. The Yankees haven't had to do that.
They're not competing against people. They're competing against basically AAA level talented teams at this point. The NL East is horrible. It is horrible. If you look at the Braves are what, 1 game over 500. The rest of the teams are under 500. If you look at any power rankings of teams in MLB right now, the AL East is going to have 3 teams in there. The NL East is going to have 1, and the Mets are great, but boy, do they have. You talk about an easy road. They have a very easy road to win in that division compared to the dogfight the Yankees are going to have to be in with the Rays, with the Jays. Honestly, you want to you can shit on the Orioles. They look a lot better than they have in the past. They have some fight in them.
Still
And the Red Sox, they're not. I wouldn't say they're still the Orioles. I think
and
they're
the Yankees
better. Listen, if
if
the Orioles were in the NL East, if the Orioles were in the NL East, they'd be in second, probably fighting for third fighting for second. They're better than probably better than the Marlins.
No,
than
they're
the Nationals.
not better than the Marlins.
Well,
the
they are
Marlins,
one game better right now.
You take 6 pitchers
in a good division.
before you take the first one.
And they've had to play the Yankees so many times, and they're still where they are.
Yep, I will say this. Looking at the strength,
I will say the Orioles are not that. The Orioles are gonna. They already have broken some hearts out there. I know the Red Sox were all high and mighty going into a series with them, and think they got beat pretty bad. The Orioles are. I will tell you this right now. There's gonna be a series in August where a team's gonna be like, "I will get to play the Orioles. We're gonna sweep them," and they're gonna have a dogfight. That team is not as bad as they've been in the past.
They're still a 60-win team.
They're not a 60-win team.
Yes, they are. They're not. If they win more than 62 games, I would be shocked. They're a 100-loss team.
What do you want to bet on that?
Woo! Let's see. Let's get a good bet.
Whatever you want. I will bet that they're a 100-loss team. Absolutely.
100. All right. So Joe is proclaiming a 100-loss team. I mean, Tom, that's you only got to get
a 70-plus win team.
I mean, we can listen. We can. The difference between a 100-loss team and a 70-win team is not much. If we're being honest, it's a 10-game difference. And also the Orioles. I think the Orioles will not win. Let's do a nice easy one. If the Orioles lose 100 or more games, I'll do an episode of Empire State of Baseball in a Mets jersey. And if the Orioles win, or if they don't lose 100 games, you'll do one in a beautiful pinstripe. It'll make you look nice and svelte. You'll look better than you ever have in your life.
That is the easiest bet of the year.
All right,
100%.
Man,
lock that in.
I locked that in a second.
That's it.
I'll never sniff it. They will never come close to not getting 100 losses. Would somebody get me the Orioles record right now?
All right, right now, today. All right, I have it right for you.
23 and 33. So they're on pace for 69 wins. So feeling even better about that at this point. And again, they've played the Yankees so many times, and they're not going to play them as much going forward.
It did feel like they were playing the Yankees
every
week.
And they're a 100-loss team because they're going to sell whoever they got at the deadline. So this is money in the bank.
Well,
I wish we had more than just a jersey.
All their players are not sell. They're going to sell. They're going to sell.
Mancini's going to go.
If maybe Mancini, they're not selling Santander. They're not selling Mountcastle. Listen. They're not going to be buyers, but they don't have a lot to sell. They have young. Listen, I'm telling you, they're not as bad as you think they are.
Joe, what player you want? What jersey? What player you going to wear?
Yeah,
I'll tell you what. I will wear a Joey Gallo one.
You know what?
That's how confident I am. I will wear the Joey. There you go, the Joey Gallo jersey.
That's former A-Rod jersey. Listen, it wasn't an A-Rod jersey, but now it could be a Joey Gallo jersey. You'll look so nice in this.
Yep. Oh boy. And listen, I tell you what, Tom.
I'll never have to wear it.
I actually kind of agree that they're not going to be a 100-loss team, but Tom, I think if they are, and you have to take the L here, it would only be fitting if somehow you go back in a time capsule and get a Lenny Harris Mets shirt.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know if there's probably one I can. Well, definitely not going to fit in one. There's a David Wright one up here of my wife, so I'm not going to fit in that. So I'm gonna have to borrow one from one of you guys. But we'll
make it work.
We're not going to have to because the Orioles aren't going to lose 100 games.
Yeah. We'll make it work for sure. And, again, we do got to move on here. But you want to look at strength of schedule right now. Like I said before, Yankees right now are fourth easiest. But at the same time, they do have one of the harder schedules in the second half. They're actually the fifth hardest schedule down the stretch. Mets right now, right about the middle of the league, 13th hardest schedule to date. Down the stretch, a little easier. They're in their tough West Coast strip right now, but they're about 21st in terms of ranked in the second half. But anyway, we got to keep it going here. And if you love that segment, you love our future segments, whatever you want to come back and listen to us, please follow along, debate with us on Twitter at ESB Podcast. And you can follow each of us individually, myself at G Gory, Joe at JR Pugs, Tom at TWOSPIL. I know you had a 52 in there at some point, right? So that's
there's a 54. It's just T-Waspil now.
54. Now just
growing up.
There you go. Growing up. And you could also follow our Chooch at MTook45. And speaking of the Chooch, we have one of our favorite segments. It's an every week segment. We have the Chooch pick of the week. Overall, your record's been pretty good so far. I forget the exact overall at this point. I know you took the L predicting the Cardinals sweep. They actually almost lost the series, but they were able to salvage the last game last night. Ended up being a 2-2 split in the 4-game set. Always hard to pick the 4-game series, but I give you credit for doing so. But Chooch, what do you got for us this week?
So, all right, I got going back to California this weekend. We got the Dodgers versus the Giants. It's a tight race in the West. The Dodgers have been kind of on a slump. They got swept by the Pirates and then lost 2 to the Mets. Giants right there in it, and they're third place in the West right now, but it's very tight between the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants at this moment. So I think this weekend the Dodgers are going to pick it back up, and they're going to win the series this weekend.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the Dodgers are due for a series win. I mean, they got embarrassed by the Pirates. You just said the Mets. They were up 2-0 in the series, the Dodgers. They ended up losing the last 2, split the series with the Mets. I'm going to go with you this week. I agree. I think the Dodgers are due for a series win.
Yeah, I'll roll with you as well on that. I with all of the points we've made so far, I think they're, in a little bit of a tough stretch. They're getting swept by the Pirates. They were up 2 games against the Mets in a 4-game set, and then lost those last 2. Not that the Giants are a pushover, but it might be time to let out some aggression and put a beat on someone that matters. So I'll roll with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think. Listen, the Dodgers coming off a 3-game sweep by Pittsburgh, roll into potential NLCS or playoff matchup against the Mets that was hard fought. I think that's bad news for the next team that comes in there, no matter who it would be. And in this case, I just don't think that the Dodgers are going to roll over for anybody at the moment. They're annoyed. They've now lost the best record in the National League. So they're going to be motivated to take it to whatever the team that comes in this week. So I'm going to take the Dodgers in this one. I think that's an easy one.
Nice.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So we are going to pivot quickly before we get to the Mets and talk a little bit about the Angels. Okay, and the Angels fall from heaven. Have now lost, I believe it is 11 of their last 13 games. They are on an 11-game losing streak. And they have been in complete and utter freefall, swept by the Yankees. Were almost non-competitive the whole series. Go in, lose a couple of heartbreaking games to Philly, who just fired their manager. And this begs the question, and I'm dying to know from you guys before I give my opinion. Is Shohei Ohtani hurting the Angels more than helping him trying to be a two-way player?
Whew. I mean, it's hard for me to criticize Ohtani because honestly, I could make the argument that he is actually the face of baseball right now. I know Trout's the better player. Judge is having the best season. But I think Ohtani, baseball is terrible at marketing players, but I actually think they've done a pretty good job marketing Ohtani. I see him on commercials quite a bit. He had that cryptocurrency commercial that was replaying for a while. It's so hard for me to criticize what Ohtani's doing. And I'm just looking at the stats. I do like him more as a hitter, without a doubt. I mean, last year, 639 plate appearances, hit 46 home runs, 100 ribbies. And then you go ahead and look at the pitching numbers. And this year, sitting about 3.99 ERA. Last year, 3.18. Now, 3.18 is actually pretty solid, if you ask me. Is he hurting them more? I think the thing is with Ohtani, switching between hitting and pitching consistently. This guy is the best at doing that. Whether or not you want your, this type of player doing both, I mean, he's playing out of this world. Almost makes me wonder, would it be better to have him come in as a reliever as opposed to a starting pitcher? You need a big lefty batter in the game. You want to go to the bullpen, maybe throw Ohtani in there for a few batters. It's something that's interesting to debate. But also with the new rules with, the DH and stuff, you don't want to lose his bat, at the same time. But
you don't,
it's
though. That's not how the rules set up. If Ohtani comes out of a game, he pitches, he's allowed to stay in. So
yeah, but how does it work if you're a pitcher? So you're let's say you're starting, and I don't really know the rule as well, and then this is on me. But let's say he was a reliever. Like, what if he's DHing, and in the 8th inning, all of a sudden you got a big lefty bat up there, and you want to go to Ohtani out of the pen? How does it work with the DH at that point?
That I don't know. I know that they, for the starting pitcher, that's what they have it set up. I don't know how it would work as a reliever. It'd be almost interesting. I wonder if like Major League Baseball would have to use the ruling that they ran into with the Mets and the Dodgers of because because I didn't even realize that was a rule that you can't bring a position player in if it's not 6 runs or more. So I don't know if it's Ohtani categorized as a pitcher, so he'd be allowed to do that. But what if he was playing left field in that game and then he wanted to? It would be interesting to see how Major League Baseball categorizes him. I would think that they would allow him to do it, though. I think it would be similar. I don't know, because again, they just ran into the thing of saying a position player can't come in unless it's 6, if it's over six runs or more. We're gonna have to get someone on that to figure that out answer. Maybe next week.
Yeah,
Matt, feelings on Ohtani and the Angels.
So yeah, the Angels are relying.
It'll be Chooch's rule of the week, and he'll explain what happens if they want to bring Ohtani in the 8th.
So the Angels are really relying on Ohtani to be their staff ace, and there's a reason why the staff ace in every other organization takes a 5-day rest in between games. This guy Ohtani's going, 4 days rest in between games, and this guy Ohtani's going out there every day, not taking any rest, even though he's DHing, but he's still got to get up there. He's got to have fight on his plate appearances. He's got to run the bases, and I read somewhere the other day, somebody had a comment that if Ohtani just focused on pitching, he'd be the AL's DeGrom. I forgot who said it, but I did read that comment the other day. I do think if he focused on pitching solely, I think he would be that staff ace that they're looking for. But right now, I think he's just like a 2-3 pitcher in their rotation.
Listen, I know all of you think I hate the Mets, but I don't think you could compare to anyone to what Jacob deGrom is when he's healthy, because he is a different breed that honestly none of us have probably seen, unless maybe watching Randy Johnson and Roger Clemens, because I don't think Ohtani would be that. If you look at it, we talked about the plus stats before. Just I guess as comparison, last year Ohtani's OPS plus, so he was 158, so he was 58% essentially better than the average hitter. This year 122, so he's still well above average, but down. His ERA plus last year was, I had it and I lost it. It was 139, so he was a plus ERA. So ERA plus and an OPS plus, he was an above average or well above average in either one. If he was just one of them last year in either of those, he would have been an all-star. This year it's 98, so technically he's slightly below average. I think he's just having a little bit of an off year. I wonder if the weight of what he's doing is weighing him down, and if at some point he'll need to decide. So it has to weigh on you, with not getting the breaks, and then you're not just the hitter in the lineup, you're the second best hitter, feared hitter in your lineup behind Trout. That's a lot.
Listen, I have a very controversial opinion on Ohtani, and that is that Ohtani has now become a sideshow that is helping sink the Angels ship. All right. Let me be very clear. Ohtani is not the reason that they lost 11 in a row and that they have slid down the mountain. All right. Part of that goes to Joe Madden. Part of that goes to the GM and the poor roster construction. and the inability to find and develop pitching for years now. But Ohtani has kind of become what Russell Westbrook at one point was in the NBA, which the obsession with the triple-double in Westbrook's case, the obsession with these outrageous stat lines and doing things that other people haven't done before. People are infatuated by it, but at the end of the day, what is that doing for your team? And in Ohtani's case, the last two outings, which have been 2 outings in 12 days, instead of now pitching 3 times in 15 days, he's going to pitch 3 times in 17 or 18 days in the midst of a 12-game skid. A normal team's ace would be going in tomorrow for most teams. So for me, Ohtani is not going to help the Angels until he stops hitting as much as he is and focuses more on pitching. When you have a 6-man rotation, that is one more time every time around the rotation that your 6th best pitcher on the roster, or 7th, 8th, depending on who's hurt, has to pitch. And other teams don't have their 6th best starter going every 6th day or every 5th day. And the Angels have that. So that is one more time around the rotation that you have to get back to your stopper. How many times have we seen the Yankees, the Mets, Nationals go into a skid and Scherzer, DeGrom, and Cole take it off a 2-game losing streak or a 3-game losing streak and stop the bleeding? In Ohtani's case, his last 2 starts, he's been blown out of the building. When Ohtani had to come up biggest and best, which is in Yankee Stadium, which he has a career 27 ERA in Yankee Stadium, when he has to walk into Yankee Stadium and keep them in the game against the big bad Yankees, he's out by the 3rd inning because the Yankees are shelling him. I'm sorry. That's not my best pitcher in my rotation. Cannot be non-competitive against the Yankees. If your idea is to get to the playoffs and compete in October baseball, you're going to have to walk into Yankee Stadium and you're going to have to pitch 6 or 7 innings and you're going to have to keep your team in the game. Ohtani was non-competitive against them. He was non-competitive against the Blue Jays. At this particular point in time, it is more about his individual achievements than what is best for the team. And I think Madden's about to lose his job. I think whoever his replacement is that's going to come in is going to change things. I think Ohtani's going to move to more of a 3-game hidden window where he hits for 3 games. He'll sit for 3 games, and he'll be fully rested for his starts. I think that's what they should do. I think they should do away with the silly 6-man rotation because you're putting pitchers out there who aren't supposed to be pitching in a major league rotation, and they don't have a great rotation anyway. So for me, I like the experiment. I like the effort for it, but it's time for it to end because you were the best team in baseball or one of them, and now you're not. And now this experiment is now a sideshow that you are falling off a cliff. So for me, I would have ended the experiment a month ago. I think that Ohtani, and this is what they paid him for. This is why they got him. They got him to be that number 1 pitcher. And yes, he's a great hitter, but they do not need more offense at this point. They need a pitcher, and Ohtani has to be that number 1 guy. And if he's not, I'm sorry. I think that hurts the team more than it helps it.
Yeah, no, it's tough to see. And, we'll see what ends up happening once they do make a managerial change. I personally think Ohtani, if he's a full-time hitter, is a top 5 hitter in the game of baseball. If he's a full-time pitcher, is he a top 5 pitcher in baseball? That I couldn't tell you that, whether he is or whether he's not. I love him as a hitter. But, we'll see what happens. Certainly more to come. And I do think he's the most marketable guy in baseball right now. But anyway, Joe, I know that was a fun segment. You had a lot of good takes, and I know a lot of people might want to go ahead and rewatch that. So come on, tell us how they can rewatch that if they'd like to.
All right. You can find us on YouTube. Full episodes of Empire State of Baseball is on our YouTube page. Go ahead, check them out. Click the like button, share, and subscribe with all your friends. And you can see full episodes and best of clips on our YouTube page. That will lead us into, finally, for the Met fans in the chat, the Queen's Gambit. All right. The Mets out in the midst of an LA trip that I believe is 12 games long. Come back and split a series with LA despite losing the first 2 games. Turn around with Peterson and Trevor Williams on the mound. Is it Trevor Williams?
Yep.
Trevor Williams on the mound, win the final 2 games of the series. The last being a compelling game back and forth. Both closers blow the save, and the Mets walk away with Luis Medina striking out, taking on the heart of the Dodgers order in Betts, Freeman, and Turner, and getting out of it there in the 10th. So, what do we think of our Mets here this week?
Listen, I'll tell you what, I'm absolutely loving it right now. And whenever you get my take is win the 3-game series, split the 4-game series. And that's exactly what they did against the Dodgers. They lost the first 2, won the last 2. And like I said at the very beginning of the show when we were opening up, I said I was looking at these pitching matchups Thursday right as the series was starting. And I said, you know what? First 2 matchups are not that bad. I mean, right now, Bassett is the best starting pitcher on our roster currently with Scherzer and DeGrom on the IL. I thought that was their best chance to win was Friday. Also Thursday with Walker. Walker, was an all-star last year. I know he's not as good this year, but I still trust him out there on the mound. They went up there with Peterson versus Buehler, shelled Buehler. I thought that game had no shot. And yesterday with Williams, listen, Williams is what he is. He's a spot starter, long relief option in the pen. He came out there. He battled. He did his job. Gutsy win. Like you said, with Medina getting his first career save in a huge spot with the ghost runner on second base there versus the Dodgers. But listen, it's fun right now. And I think right now, these are the best 2 teams in the National League. It's very hard. I still think there's a vibe with the LA Dodgers that a lot of people, maybe not so much now, because now the Yankees are clearly number 1 team in baseball, but a lot of people still think LA makes the debate for number 1 overall. But right now, listen, the Mets, in terms of pure record, they're number 1, and you have to start thinking about potential NLCS. First, let's get to the playoffs. First, let's win a series in the playoffs. But in a 7-game series, let me tell you, that would be a very fun series, especially when the starting pitching you hope is back. Because if you have Buehler and DeGrom, you have Urias and Scherzer, you look at these pitching matchups, they're probably going to get 2 games each in a 7-game series, assuming it goes the distance. That's going to be so good for baseball. I mean, that matchup, if you're getting that in the NLCS, I mean, MLB could not ask for a better NLCS matchup than that.
Matt, what are you feeling?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the Mets fans, you got to be happy with what you saw this weekend. This is definitely, like, I agree with you guys, a preview of what's to come in the playoffs. These are the 2 best teams in the National League right now. And, yeah, even with, like you said, the pitching was not the favorable matchups in the game that you won. And come playoffs, you're going to have your aces out there, your full staff, hopefully. DeGrom will be out there, like you said. Scherzer will be back. Bassett is a great pitcher on any team. And it's going to go with Kershaw, Buehler, Urias, they all match up with the Mets. It's going to be a great pitching series. I can easily see it going 7. And yeah, I think the Mets taking on the Padres this next couple of games, I think they're going to take that series as well.
I mean, listen, I know we might be getting ahead of ourselves. We were talking about getting ahead of ourselves for a Subway Series and, possibly getting ahead of ourselves for NLCS as if the Mets are a scary team. They're a scary team, currently, the best team in the NL. But if they have some semblance of DeGrom, you figure Scherzer will be back and good to go at that point. That is a very scary undertaking. And for as much as I say the Mets play in a Mickey Mouse division, which they do, they are still, it doesn't take away for how good they are. It's just how bad their division, the teams are competing with are. It's again, I also agree with Corey that 4-game series on the road in LA, you sign up for that split and you get the hell out of there. So I think that's a great win for them, especially going down the first 2 games, fighting back. This team has really shown a lot of heart, a lot of fight this year with some big comeback wins, and they get a series like this. They're going to be around. They're going to be there at the end. And, another thing, if we're talking playoffs early, we have to also keep in mind about how the structure is this year. And we,
Yep.
both of our teams, you got to not just hope to make the playoffs, but you want to be the top two. Is the top two the top two
yeah.
people in each league, because then you get essentially a bye out of that wild card round, which is a short series like that. Anything really can happen. So I think that's going to be the number one goal for really both our teams as we move through June here.
Yeah, definitely.
Listen, it felt like a playoff series. It felt like it could be a preview of the NLCS. Hopefully that would be when they would meet and not the NLDS. I'm not sure how the seeding would have to work out for that to happen. But listen, the Mets are a grinded out team no matter what. Williams and Peterson have stepped up in the absence of DeGrom and Scherzer, but I think any team in this league would not want to face the Mets if those two guys are healthy, let alone the way the team is currently constructed. Alonso is on fire, leads the league in RBIs. They have a great supporting cast between Canna and Marte. They have guys who just never give up on their bats. And every time somebody scores on them, they seem to come right back and want to score themselves. So, again, yesterday was a big indicator of that. They gave up the lead twice, came back to score the next inning each time, and put themselves in a position to have a guy like Medina, who's a relative unknown, a relative unheard of a young pitcher, and he stepped up in a big way. So,
yep. 100%. No, they stepped up. The resiliency is also key because, like you said, and we saw it once early in the year where they had that 7-run inning versus the Phillies and ended up winning. And this team, it's no quit. Every time they go down, you honestly feel like they can come back in the game. And Tom, you hit it on the head too with the new playoff structure, and you want to be one of those top 2 seeds in your division now in the league with the new rules. And right now, I got to tell you, again, this is all hypothetical because a hell of a lot could happen between now and the end of the year. We know, as Mets fans, certainly know that. But right now, what about this? Assuming everything goes by the number exactly as it is today, the top 2 division leaders in each league, you have the Yankees and the Astros in the American League, and the Mets and the Dodgers in the National League. If you're Major League Baseball, you physically could not ask for a better championship series. The ratings would be through the roof. You get the Astros-Yankees drama from 2017, still lingering today. A lot of hatred. And obviously, National League, you get 2 of the best teams in baseball going against each other with the Mets and the Dodgers and that starting pitching staff on both teams. Wow, you really couldn't script it up better.
Yeah.
No,
I agree. Tom, give us a little rundown of what we got going on here.
Sure. Yeah. So again, thanks for watching us here on Twitch or on YouTube on the replay. You also can follow us on Instagram at Empire State of Baseball. We do a lot with our stories on there to kind of prep for episodes, put some polls up there that we can talk about. And also ESB podcast on Twitter. Make sure you are subscribing on Twitter and YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff that, like Mr. Beast says. That stuff.
Yep, all that fun stuff.
All right.
The kids watch, right? The kids watch the Beast guy, I think.
Mr. Beast, yep. One of the hottest YouTube channels right now in the game.
That leads us into our last segment of the day. A little fun thing, since both the Yankees and Mets have the best records in baseball. We'll do a little comparison here to these present-day teams in their current situation to what we were like in 2006. Last time, both the Yankees and Mets led their respective leagues in wins at the same time was 2006, and both teams finished 97 and 56. Guys, if you had to go back and put your thinking caps on, in a possible head-to-head, which of your squads do you think was better?
So listen, I'll say, I think if either of the Yankees or Mets this year finished 97 and 65, at this point we'd be disappointed with how good they've been, right? I think at this point, if either of these teams don't win 100 games, you would think there was some serious collapse and it was bad. So speaking of for the Yankees, I did look at it and I kind of did similar to what we do with our power rankings that we do, and I looked like who would I prefer. The positions, the starting pitching, relievers, DH, and I actually gave more points to the '06 Yankees, one over the 22 Yankees, but I felt like the advantages the 22 Yankees had in each of the ones that they won was pretty significant. So I do think I would take the 22 Yankees, just based on especially the pitching. Their starting pitching is phenomenal. The Yankees in '06 starters. We had what was left of Randy Johnson out there, Jarrett Wright, Chiming Wong, who definitely was good. Messina was still out there. Pettit, I think this was the time where Pettit was in Houston. Yeah, so Pettit was gone. Sean Chacon was getting starts. He was out there. So I think the starting pitching and honestly the bullpen. The 06 bullpen had the GOAT Mariano, but after that, if you look who else is in that bullpen, there's some names there that you would not feel very confident in as you do for this current team. So I'm taking the current guys for as much as it I hate to not have A-Rod and Jeter on my team.
Yeah, Tom, I agree with you 100%. I am also going the 2022 team over the 06 team, even though Cano and Jeter that year had phenomenal years. They batted over 340 those years. The catcher position with Posada is definitely a better situation than what we have now, even though Trevino is coming along. We'll see if he can sustain what he's doing. But yeah, the pitching is the starting rotation is the biggest factor in this. Like you said, Sean Chacon was throwing some games. Sidney Ponson was spot starting here and there. So yeah, I think the starting pitching, and I agree with the relievers. I know that 06 team probably had Kyle Farnsworth and Tanyan Sturtz in there, and yeah, like you said, some names are in there.
I was looking at it because at first I thought, well, the relievers you would definitely go to the 06. They had Mariano, but whoa, it's Jeff Karstens, your Corey Lidles. We talk about Sidney Ponson, Tanyan Sturtz, Octavio Dotel. There was some interesting names out there in that bullpen again, in that starting rotation. The Jarrett Wright threw 140 innings for the Yankees that year. That's alarming. So yeah, I would go with our current squad. What about in the other borough? What do we feel about the Mets?
I mean, it's a very interesting debate between 06 and 2022. And if I look back at my Mets fandom over my lifetime, when I always used to watch baseball as a kid with my mom, my uncle, always watching baseball. The first year that I really started to follow literally watching every single game after school was actually the 04 Mets team. And what was cool about catching them that point, because it was a time of transition going from 04 then to 05, the quote-unquote new Mets, leading up into the 2006 Mets season, which still to date is my favorite team to have followed over the course of my lifetime, because I saw them going from 02 and 03 and to a lesser extent 04 being the bottom barrel of the league. 2005, a lot of hope, a lot of change. You got above 500. And 06, what a fun team. Very balanced team, too. I mean, it was an older team for the most part, a lot of veteran guys, but you also had some younger kids coming up. I mean, this is David Wright and Jose Reyes right in the young part of their career when they were becoming breakout players in the league. You saw the run that John Maine gave you. Again, at the time, young pitcher. Oliver Perez in the big trade at the deadline, young pitcher. It was such a fun, balanced team, 06. And then you look at the current team today. I mean, I think it's actually, if you're looking at the comparisons between the 06 and the 22s for both the Mets and Yankees, it's very similar, because I think while the Mets pitching in 06 was good, there's no debate. I'm taking the 22 Mets starting pitching over the 06 pitching any day of the week. The bullpen, I'm actually going to go the reverse. Billy Wagner and Edwin Diaz, both phenomenal. I actually really love what Diaz is right now. I trust him full speed, but Wagner was my favorite Mets closer of all time, and again, in my era. But the rest of that 06 bullpen was so good. Obviously, Aaron Heilman giving up the home run to Yadi Molina. Fire Seth Lugo straight to the sun, said Raj in the chat. I also think Seth Lugo and Aaron Heilman, very similar vibes. I wouldn't trust him in that 8th inning of an NLCS game. But then you look at the lineups, and it's interesting because I thought the 06 team, very balanced, a mixture of veterans, younger players. You throw in his prime Beltran versus the current team. Definitely, I mean, Alonso, so good. Lindor, so athletic at shortstop. Marte has brought a different vibe to the team. It's tough, and a head-to-head matchup. I want to say the 06 team because it's my favorite team, but the 22 pitching staff is going to win. I'm sorry.
If I will allow a very quick and fun John Main story. So Rich is not the only one we've talked to. Rich talks about, and again, thank God he's not here, about his Somerset Patriots and TD Bank Ballpark. But I also, I had a season where I worked for the Trenton Thunder when they were the Yankee affiliate, and I was there for a John Main rehab start, which the building was not electric, but there was definitely some juice there seeing a major leaguer. And I remember after the game, he brought in Outback Steakhouse for everyone, like for on the Binghamton Mets at the time. And I remember just after I guess he must have ordered like thousands of dollars. They just for us interns at the end, they just had like, oh, do you guys want some leftover filet mignons as you guys are cleaning up the stadium? And I was like, this isn't bad. Usually we get leftover hot dogs, and today we're getting leftover filet mignon. So I always appreciated John Main for that.
Yeah, there you go.
So for me, it's tough. I probably would agree that this team overall is a better team start to finish. It is more balanced across the board in terms of the start and pitch and really being at that next level. You got to remember that the pitching for the 06 Mets was led by a 40-year-old Tom Glavine and a 34-year-old Pedro Martinez. They weren't, and a human rain delay in Steve Traxel. There was not much in the way of starting pitching, even though the bullpen was lights out. You had Billy Wagner, you had Pedro Feliciano, you had Duaner Sanchez until he got hungry. Chad Bradford had a great year in that bullpen. Darren Oliver was a late season pickup. He did a great job in that bullpen as well. The Mets, I would say that the lineup in 06 was the more balanced lineup. I actually think it's one of the most underrated and underappreciated lineups historically. I think that lineup was just a gauntlet in the first 5 or 6 spots. You had Jose Reyes, who hit 300. You had Paul LaDuca hit 300. David Wright following him hit 311. Carlos Delgado and had 38 home runs. Beltran had 41 home runs that year. And then you had old man Cliff Floyd doing what he does when he was healthy. And you had Xavier Nady, who had a great year until he got traded because, once again, Sanchez got hungry. But Jose Valentin even hit 18 home runs for them at that point. That was as far as lineup balance and lineup construction, that 06 Mets team was a clinic in how you wanted your lineup structured. You had the speedster up front. You had the contact hitter hitting second. You had Wright followed by Delgado and Beltran. Those top 5 in that lineup were you couldn't get through that top of the order unscathed. If I had to pick one, I would probably pick this team overall. But the lineup for the Mets in 06 was the superior.
Are you guys considering Jacob deGrom part of this team right now?
I have to consider. I have to consider him.
I'm not saying you shouldn't, but
I still do.
I have no indication that he's not coming back.
I think the good thing with the DeGrom injury being in the first half gives you a little hope. And so far, the news has been pretty good. He pitched 19 pitches off of in a bullpen session this last weekend. Should have another bullpen session coming up soon, and we'll see what happens. But even excluding DeGrom, let's say DeGrom's not back. I mean, Scherzer is still better than any starting pitcher that the Mets had in 2006.
And Bassett might be better than anybody
Bassett
else.
could be better than the rest of that team, too. I mean, and Pedro missed the playoffs that year, too. I remember he got hurt down the stretch there. I mean, you had El Duque. I think, he was in the team. I think he got hurt also on the eve of the playoffs.
He always got hurt.
Yeah. So I think the Mets pitching, even without DeGrom, I think led by Scherzer with Bassett too, is still a little better. If DeGrom was out, I might be more inclined to say 06. I'm still going to say the 22 team just because I think that pitching staff could shut anyone down. But that 06 team to me will always be my favorite team. It was my favorite era of baseball back in high school. I absolutely loved it.
That bullpen. So I feel like we keep bringing up the the advanced stats of using the plus metrics. So if you go to Baseball Reference for the 2006 Mets, they kind of give you your starters and your top relievers. The top 5 relievers for the Mets all had a over 100 OPS, over 100 ERA plus, 196, 121, 151. Pedro Feliciano had a 210. 169. Darren Oliver threw in a 127.
He was so good.
Like that is that's a very formidable, scary bullpen. So
that's the big difference. The bullpen to me with the 06 team, if this was a game that's a tie game going like 8th inning onwards, that 06 team is probably going to pull it out. But that bullpen was so good.
And the offense, everyone in that starting, their normal starters, 8 of 9. An above average hitter over a 100 OPS plus. So that is definitely a formidable squad.
There was no weak link in that lineup. You can find, Nito or Escobar in this lineup. You can find a weakness. In the 06 Mets, there was no weakness. You cannot get through that lineup more than 1 or 2 times without getting hurt. So, but that's another topic of a conversation that we could talk all day about. We are over our time right now, so we'll throw it around. Chooch, your debut show. Anything? Any last thoughts here before we head out?
Yeah, I'd just like to see some good baseball continue to be played in the state of New York from both teams. Maybe and hopefully we'll get a Subway Series, but don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. And just want to say thank you guys for having me today. It was great.
Pleasure having you, pal.
Listen, it's the best show we've ever had. You brought a lot, and more importantly, you brought something because if Rich was here and he's not even like watching live, which just shows his commitment to the show.
Yeah,
he brings us down. So we definitely appreciate you stepping in for him this week.
Yeah, I'm going to my thank you of the week is going to the Chooch as well. Thank you for filling in big spots. Love to hear your insights about Major League Baseball and New York sports especially. Welcome aboard.
Yep, thanks for coming, Chooch. Thank you all for the listeners in the chat. You've been great as always. And we will see you next week at our normal time, hopefully with Rich back. But who knows, if he finds buried treasure in Atlantis, maybe we'll all get lucky and he'll never come back.
We shall see.
Take care, everybody.